Okay, so welcome to today's social system mapping OnRamp session for November 9th, 2020. Your hosts today are Christine Capper, that's me, co-founder of sumApp and Greater Than the Sum, and Kara Martner, that's Kara, who just waved, and she'll be our tech support today. If you have any problems, just feel free to either message her just message all of us in Slack or message her directly. This is the first of our monthly series of 3 community of practice sessions for social system mapping. On the second Monday, which is today, we have an OnRamp session, which is an intro level session for people who haven't seen a social system map at all and need to see what one looks like. We usually have someone from the community who's got a map share that. So today was supposed to be Sarah Shanahan was going to share her map of the REAMP network. But Sarah ended up with a last minute conflict. So today I'm going to be sharing a map that my partner Tim and I have been working on, which is for the Transformation Systems Mapping and Analysis Working Group. That's a pretty long name and pretty cumbersome, but I usually just call it the TSM&A group. So we'll go through that map. And the other sort of purpose of our OnRamps is just that even experienced mappers like Mary, we all just love to see each other's maps and see what each other's doing and how we're thinking about it. So it's a great opportunity to just get to know other people in the community and what they're working on. The third Monday of the month, we have a deep dive conversation, which is usually addresses a topic that's been sort of up for people. We pay more attention. We like in the OnRamp, it's introductory level, and there's always questions that come up in the OnRamp that will actually take more time to unpack, and so we save those for the deep dive conversations. This coming the next Monday, the deep dive will be Lisa Negstad and I will be doing sense making with the Now What map. Now What is a pretty active map, and we've had that in OnRamp several times. And we're going to use human systems dynamics concepts to explore the Now What map. It's actually pretty cool, pretty intuitive, pretty fun. This is a new approach that Lisa and I have used a few times, and I keep being impressed with how well it works. So we're going to do that next week. You don't need to be a member of the Now What community, or you don't need to be familiar with the map at all. It can be a brand new thing, and it can still be interesting. And then the fourth Monday of the month, we have a tech talk, which is usually for, hi Jim, for people who actually do the technical parts of social system mapping, such as understanding how to work with sumApp and making the map in Kumu. And next on the 23rd, we're gonna, well, Kara changed it somewhere, but it didn't show up in my presentation. What we're going to do is not getting started in sumApp. We're going to do what we did last month, which is using liberating structures to give our map hat wearers an opportunity to connect and share ideas and deal with an open-ended question session. So that was really fun, and we're going to do that again. But the other thing we often do in those tech sessions is introduce you to either new techniques that we just learned or new features of sumApp. So if you're interested in learning more about social system mapping, there's a few things you can do, one of which is to be on our community map. That's the best way to get an experience of what does it feel like to be a participant and what is the tool, what do the 2 tools look like. So Kara's putting a link to opting in to our social system map. And so I encourage you to do that for a real firsthand experience. We also have a Slack team, which we welcome you to join, where you can ask questions, and some of the people on in this call right now will be in there, and we all try to help you as quickly as possible. And then we also have an online knowledge base, which has a whole lot of articles about social system mapping. So Kara has put links to all of those in the chat, so you can access them now, but we will also send you a follow-up email after today's session within the next 48 hours with a link to the video of today's session, plus all these resources and any other links we use today. So don't feel like you have to get them right now, but they're there if you're curious. And then the last thing that's a really good resource for learning is just recordings of all the recent sessions we've done. So we do a session, we put it on a page, and that will also be, like I said, in the follow-up email, and it's in the chat now. So lots of ways for you to learn more and poke around, and if you're just curious, get more of your curiosity dealt with. Then if you followed your curiosity and you're to a place where you're stuck or you're confused, you just need a little bit of thought partnering, you need some help, I devote half an hour a week at the same time to what I call office hours, which is every Thursday from 5 to 5:30 p.m. Central. So you just use my regular Slack link, which you can find, or Zoom link, which you can find in Slack, and just jump on and join me and get your questions answered. And hopefully that's a good way to get you unstuck quickly. I do cancel sometimes because I just, it's the end of the day and I'm exhausted, or some other thing happened. And so when I do, I always put that in Slack so that if you double check there, or you'll just show up and I won't be there, but that's fair warning. Okay, so for today's agenda, we're gonna, in a second, we're gonna do chat, just intros of everybody in the chat. And then I'm gonna share the TS-M&A map. And the cool thing about the TS-M&A map that we'll think about mostly today is how it's using what we call the dual elements feature, which enables you to map both the relationships among individuals, as well as the relationships among organizations, as well as the relationships between individuals and organizations. And then we'll do some question and answers. And for those of you who aren't familiar with our usual structure of these sessions, we have the formal session is designed to go an hour. So we go to the top of the hour, and then usually I and Kara will stick around for an extra half an hour. So if you have more questions and you want to dig a little deeper, or you have a total different topic you want to talk about, you can stick around for that extra half hour of just informal conversation. So you're invited to just to stay for that if you want. Okay, so let's start with getting to know you a little bit. So let's start with your name. Have you all into the chat put your name, pronoun, and location? I'm assuming that everybody is pretty comfortable with Zoom by now. If anybody needs help, needs instructions, please chime in. We'll be all in awe that you haven't been subject to Zoom for 50 hours a week, and we'll envy you. But okay, so Mark from Traverse City, welcome, and Samantha from Denver, Jim from Berkeley, Kara from Minnesota, Pedro, you made it, great, from Mexico, Mary Roscoe from San Francisco Bay Area, Jessica David from Providence, Rhode Island. Cool. Oh, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see each other's, have a little more space for each other. Great. Well, welcome everyone. So glad to see you. Was a fascinating week. So I'm sure there's still some fascination to be had, but I just want to acknowledge that was a big thing. Okay, and Peter from Charlotte. Welcome to all of you. Okay, so let's do, so the next question in our chat is, so what's one primary network or project that you're part of or that you're working with? Let's go ahead and ask you to put that in the chat now so we can see what each other's doing and sort of the context that you're each coming from. And if you don't have one, that's fine. But you probably have some kind of context in mind, even if it's not actual. So welcome to put that. Grantees at a foundation. We see those. That's a pretty common use of social system mapping. Network of consultants with local nonprofits. Networks related to children and nature. Jim's 50-year high school reunion. Anyone else have a network that they're working with? Early childhood educators throughout Northern Michigan. We had a guy on last month who was doing some fascinating work with education in Canada among mostly Native Nation teenagers. Pretty interesting conversation. Sociocracy organizations in Latin America and entrepreneurs from a program in Puebla. Great. Cool. And Jim wanting to use race and identity in a white majority research collaborative. Interesting. Okay, so we could all have lots of things to talk about and learn from each other in addition to seeing this social system mapping. It seems like, because there's a lot of really cool topics in here. But we're doing this for today. So I'm gonna ask you to do what's one network weaving challenge that you think or hope that social system mapping might be able to help you with. So a network challenge that you'll be holding it in your mind as we do this. I've been working with networks for 12 years now, and I have no shortage of challenges. Mark, getting participants, yes. Once a tool is developed to visualize a network, getting participants to provide their information and keep it updated and relevant. That is a big challenge. That is partly, well, I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get started, but that's a very familiar challenge. Jim, identifying critical relationships and structures in an interprofessional healthcare relational coordination task. That sounds like your next project that you're thinking about working on. Anyone else? How about this? If you're, okay, Jessica. Network members have uneven degrees of awareness of local ecosystem, different ways of defining relationships, also bringing in perspective of organizations. Yeah. Okay. And then from Smith, understanding how to evaluate the impact of a cohort model on the work of each group. Interesting. Cool. Okay. If you are, I'll check back in a minute to see if there's more. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And we're done with the chats. And can everybody see this map that I'm showing you? Or, okay, great. So for those of you, I'll just do a really quick intro to how this works overall. There's two tools. One tool is sumApp, and sumApp is basically just a fancy version of a survey tool designed for networks. And the most important piece of sumApp is that we make it easy to gather interpersonal or interorganizational relationships, data about relationships, and then we structure that data in a way that works easily with a data visualization platform, basically Kumu, but you can use it in other platforms, which I'll show you in just a second. But the big challenge with gathering relational data and then representing it visually is the biggest challenge is getting the data structured right. So a lot of people will make a survey and then they'll try to put their survey into Kumu and they'll just discover that it wasn't as easy as they thought it was going to be. So I'm just going to comment. So Mary Roskal also put in, making invisible visible, bringing wholeness and living system picture into mapping. Yeah, that's close to my heart. So, okay, so sumApp is how we gather the data, and we make sumApp as adaptable as possible so that your data can continually be updated and that it's easy to use for network members, and that it's easy to add new questions, to change the language if you discover you need to do that. And then the map gets visualized. Oops, I'm in the wrong place. No, I'm just perpetually in the wrong place here. Sorry. And then the data gets visualized. So we gather the data in sumApp, we restructure it so that it's visualizable. And then we have a link that links the data directly into Kumu. Kumu is a data visualization platform designed for what's called a graph, a graph, which is nodes. Whenever you see dots and lines, dots connected by lines, that's a graph visualization tool. And Kumu is so far the nicest online interactive graph visualization tool out there. So sumApp works with Kumu, and in sumApp, it's just very simple. There's a survey here. We can ask a bunch of questions. Here's the connection piece where, so this is my instance of sumApp, and I can pop open a tile. I can see who's in the network. And when I see somebody I know, I can say, oh, I don't actually know this guy, but I'm going to pretend. I can say, oh, yeah, I am aware of them. I'm acquainted to them, whatever. These questions are all totally customizable. So it's up to you and what's relevant for your network. But this is just designed to make it really easy to answer questions about relationships. And I'm going to come back to this in a minute, to the workstream connections. I'm going to go ahead and do this now. So, and then one of the most recent big features we added to sumApp was the ability to, since we began, there's always been this tension of, are we going to map person-to-person relationships, or are we going to map organization-to-organization relationships? And in a lot of contexts, my fundamental response is the people are what make the organization. So you should be mapping the human relationships. But there are contexts where that's just not feasible. And so, or it's just not the mindset. The mindset really wants to understand inter-organizational relationships. And so for the longest time, it was you had to pick. You had to either do people or you had to do organizations, or you could do sort of a mashup, but your survey questions would sort of be usually often a little confusing because it's like, am I answering this as a person or am I answering this as my organization? And then when there's a like a relationship from this node to that node, it's like, okay, am I saying my personal relationship to that organization, or am I saying my, and so it got really kind of hard to do. And so we've made it so that you can do both, and it's fairly clear. So this is a person's survey. So if I look at the profile, this is about me as a human being in this survey. So we're asking questions about in this network, various system mapping related concepts. And then these questions are about me and Tsitsi, for example. They're not about my relationship to any organizational entities. And then we also have in this network, organizational, they're not organizations per se, but they're work streams within this network. And so we're treating those as organizations.
Or you later.
Hello? Was that? Okay. Pedro, did you want to say something?
No, sorry, I was just like a mistake there.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so in this instance, there are several, there's a dozen working groups. So we're treating those as organizations. And so now I can say, what is my personal relationship to this organization? Like, do I have a weak, medium? And actually it's getting weaker. So I'm going to make that one a medium connection now. And I'm sort of moving away from this work stream. So I'm just putting that right here, right now as we go, so I can continue to keep that updated. But this shows my relationships to each of these work streams. So that's, and then if I were also a representative for the work stream, I feel like I'm getting too technical here. I'm going to just go to the map. We can come back to that. Sorry. Okay. So this is where we visualize the data. And what we do is so this is the list of people, same people you would see in those, member tiles in sumApp. Now we see them in Kumu. And we, in Kumu, you can have a series of views. So you can, it's always the same data that we're working with. So whatever data we have in sumApp is what's showing in Kumu, but we can slice and dice it in different ways. So we sort of start with at the first view that we look at is as simple as we can make it in Kumu. Visually, so that we're not overwhelming people visually, because we used to start with lots of visualizations and lots of connections. And what I discovered is that when people saw that as their first, plus they move around. So, you know, if I as it's loading, it's always wiggling, we just overwhelm people. So we start with a fairly simple view, which is the directory view. This part we call the canvas, the part with the black background. And this part over here, the white part, we call the side panel. Side panel can be opened and closed. And in the side panel, when no individual is selected, it has this overall information about the map. And each of these links is a link to a different view. So each of these, so this is the people view. This is a view just showing the work streams and the broader networks that this network is made of. This is a view of, I'll come back to this one, but it's going to load because I clicked on it someday. So I'm just sort of making a point that we're slicing and dicing and decorating and visualizing the data differently in each of these, under every one of these links. This is all customized. We make this up as we go. How do we want to, from the beginning, we're saying, what questions do we want in the survey? What questions do we want in the connections? And then how do we want to decorate and visualize and filter on that data in Kumu? So none of this is standard. I mean, none of this is, it's all custom made for the context. None of it is like you're stuck with this language or these fields, whatever. So in this view, what we can see right away is that we can click on a person. So I'm going to click on Suzanne, and it tells us what she put into her survey answers. So these are the principles for this network that she's agreeing to. These are principles she'd like to call out or explore further, comments she has about the principles. And then we have her expertise, her roles, her interests in various other kinds of mapping. Then we have geographical information about her. We have information about what kind of contribution she's interested in making to the network. And then her organizational affiliation, what her organizational role is. So we can see this about everybody who responded to the survey. And what I'm doing is just selecting people, and you can see it's got that big white border. So we can see who has been selected. And then we can filter by some of these dimensions too. So in this first view, we're thinking, if we just think of this as a directory of the people, and we're not looking at the network structure yet, what kinds of things might people be looking for in other people in the network? So one thing might be, who all is working in Africa, or who's working in Africa, which could be living there, or it could be just that they work there. Who has what kinds of technical expertise, who's working in development and who's working in political sciences. So I can filter and mix and match the filter in various ways, and dig down and then find like who meets the criteria that I'm looking for finding somebody. Tim likes to make these little fun little dots, which tells you what that means here. And then if you hover over, you'll see more about those people. So that's the basics of navigating a map in Kumu. We've done that with people. We've done that with the organizations. This is still a relatively new network and a relatively new map. And so we don't have a whole lot of information about the work streams, just a little bit, but we plan to add more. And so we don't have a whole lot of filters for the work streams. This is a view in many, so I'm just going to say in this particular map, we started with a survey that was made in SurveyMonkey. So it was not a survey that was designed with a social system map in mind. So we took the data from the SurveyMonkey survey, wrangled it so that we could load it into sumApp, which is a thing you can do. It's kind of a hassle, but you can do that. And so and I wasn't part of the development of the original survey. So we didn't ask in a very straightforward way, but in many networks, we ask in a much more straightforward way, what offers do you have for the network and what asks do you have for the network? Like, what would you need from others in the network and what are you willing to give to others in the network? And once we have that, we cluster on those. So we use this view. It's a approximation of that same concept, meaning what expertise do you have? And then in terms of mapping, and then what kinds of interests do you have? So that the idea is to be able to help people find someone with expertise in something that they're interested in, so that they're finding someone they could learn from. So let's say mapping value creation. This is one of the things that was, I know it's hard to see on your little screens. So, so mapping value creation is one of the questions that we asked on the survey. And now I'm selecting it. So it's got that white dot around it and I can't even see hang on. Okay. When you select a node that has connections, it will give you this focus icon. And so now I'm going to just focus on mapping value creation. And then we can see that the solid green lines, it's actually in there backwards. But usually we say the solid lines are someone who has that expertise and the dotted lines are someone who's looking for that expertise. So we match up the offers and asks by solid lines and dotted lines. And then people can go through and say, well, I just want to see who's got the expertise. And in that, never mind. Sometimes things act a little strange in Kumu. But we can see by the solid and dotted lines who has that expertise. And then we can click on them and say, oh, would I like to reach out to that person or not? What other things do we have in common? So that's not an imperfect approximation of a really often useful view. And then in this instance, we have this big focus on the principles. And so we made this view and we made a pop-up of just people's comments about the principles. So so anyone who had a comment about principles shows up in this view. So we narrowed it down and then we made it so that just pops up. So it's easy to go through and see what people are thinking. And then we get to, so this, I feel like I'm this a lot, but the interpersonal connections, again, we are using the same filters. So if we want to filter people by, let's say we want to see who's working in any part of Africa and how connected are they, we can start to see that. Or so often that will be people who maybe should be introduced, don't know you'll start to find people who don't know each other, but probably should know each other for whatever reason, whether it's interests or challenges they're working on or geographical areas. And then the other piece of this, so the person, this is just our standard, we usually put the person filters up here and then, or the filters about the nodes, and then the filters about connections down here. So now we can just filter on who's collaborating with each other or who's having generative interactions with each other. So those show up down here. And then we have, this is the relationships between the work streams, which isn't being actively kept up at the moment, but you can see that, for instance, the mapping the interdimensions work stream keeps the integration work stream informed of their activities, or they keep us informed of their activities. So this is just a two-way keeping each other informed. They could also be exchanging significant amounts of workstream information, and they could be having overlapping work and areas of collaboration. So those are that we're trying to look at how deeply enmeshed are these work streams. And then we have people and workstream connections, where we're starting to see who's attached, who's working on which work streams, and what's their role in the work stream. So work streams have conveners. So we could just say, okay, just show me the conveners of each work stream. And I think I can hide. Now just show me the conveners and the work streams and nobody else. I can do that. So there's a number of ways that we can look at the relationships between the work streams and the people, between the work streams. On this view, we have them all, so we can slice and dice and filter and see that in this network, we've got this bunch of people here who have been pretty active in a lot of ways with a number of work streams. And then we have this whole group out here that either hasn't done the survey, but a lot of them have, I can tell because their pictures are there. But they're not actively engaged with a work stream. So we have some questions that we need to figure out what's going on. But that's a quick indication of, where a potential tension that we need to research about the network. I'm going to stop there and stop sharing and open it up to questions. So I feel like that was a lot of talking on my part. So yeah, Samantha, go.
I'm curious about what other sorts of data sources one might be able to generate a map through Kumu. Like, could you if you didn't want to survey folks, could you use like a LinkedIn or some other data source?
Are you talking about interpersonal? LinkedIn implies interpersonal connections. Yeah, so I mean, in Kumu, you can use any kind of data source you want. You can just manually put stuff in. So if it's an idea map, or if you can do system maps. In terms of gathering data from people, LinkedIn, we started out using LinkedIn data when we first started our mapping, and we weren't happy with LinkedIn for a number of reasons. So people were already telling us we should make our own app because they could see shortcomings to LinkedIn. For instance, one being there are whole communities that just don't use LinkedIn at all, and it made the more LinkedIn userly community look far more connected, which was not good for the ability to really understand what's going on, as well as there's just one kind of connection, which is we're connected on LinkedIn. You can't see degrees of connectedness or ask other questions. But the real thing about LinkedIn is that then several years ago, they shut down their API. So now you have to be, a big organization in order to get a LinkedIn API. You could,
okay.
Yeah, so that's really not possible, unfortunately. But that was the final trigger that pushed us over the edge to start building our own app. You could, I think you can, there's ways of pulling Twitter follow data. I don't know that there's a way to do that live, and I don't know how meaningful Twitter data. I mean, it depends on what you're trying to understand. So this is, I mean, there are also, well, those would be a survey tool. I mean, there are some tools that are designed for organizational network analysis or social network analysis. I think they're not as flexible as sumApp and updatable as sumApp, but also I'm just realizing those are also survey tools. So
okay,
there's not a whole lot of really great alternatives. Well, let me take that back. You can, like, often people will take something like a survey that doesn't ask people questions, but just ask questions about commonalities. So for instance, what field you work in. They'll be, a list of 10 of those, and then they'll map those in Kumu. It won't be telling you what is a reported personal, like I literally know this person, but it will show what I call potential connections, which is, we live on the same block, we should know each other, or, we're working in X challenge, so we should know each other. So that's a way of mapping that. But again, it's still got a survey going on with it. So
Thank you.
yeah, thanks for the question. I'm just glancing at the chat. Jim, thanks for jumping in. Yeah. Peter, is there more to that question about quantitative stuff that Jim didn't get to, or that you're still having? Did he go away? No, there you are. Okay.
I'm thinking in terms of things like edge weights and graph theory and centrality.
Yeah, there's, like Jim said, there's some of that in Kumu. Well, first of all, there are metrics that run on the person on people. So let me show you my screen. And we haven't been using them yet in this particular map, but if you click down here.
She's in Kumu right now looking at those. Those are the tools that you can see in Kumu, but you can't see them in sumApp.
Yes.
But through the window of sumApp.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to this in just a second because I just thought of, so one last thing in sumApp to note is that we also have a tab in sumApp where the map shows. So as people go through their survey, they instantly, the data gets updated, goes straight into Kumu right away. And they also right away can look at the map and now see that their data is in there. And so they can go back and forth from inputting data to looking at the map from their one link. So they don't have to go to other places. And all of this can be kept private and not findable publicly. So, and this interface looks just a little bit, the map looks pretty much the same, but it's just slightly different from if you're actually in Kumu, which is what Jim was just pointing out. Now I'm in the actual Kumu interface doing, working on, I could be editing in here or whatever, but okay, so there's this little thing called blocks down here, and you can run metrics, size, degree, in, degree, out, degree. So those are all metrics related to the individuals. So then you'll have, you know, you'll know the degree, et cetera, of the individuals in the network. And then there's also, I don't have it in here, but you can put group metrics on the bottom. So it will say, you know, what's the density of what's on the screen right now. And if you change the filters, it will say what's the density of that. I can't remember all the various group metrics that are available, but Kumu has pretty good documentation. So I would look at their metrics documentation and see what's there. But the last piece of that, go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to say, but Peter, it is a lightweight social network analytic tool compared to Node XL or other so SNA tools.
Yeah. But you can, once sumApp is great for gathering the data and you can use it. We have people who will gather it and they might do some visualizations in Kumu, but they'll also just take the data and then manually load it into Gephi, which is much more sophisticated, or you can put it into another kind of tool for your quantitative metrics.
Can you show what a Kumu led map is?
That's what we're looking at. That's what we've been looking at.
Okay, so sumApp is the tool to gather the information. Kumu is the tool to visualize it.
Yep. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yep, got it.
Okay. Yeah, and the reason we use Kumu is because it's online and it's interactive. So from the approach we're taking is less of a classic SNA approach. And so it's less about metrics and it's more about engaging a whole network to start to see the system and to be able to go in and answer questions for themselves. And so Kumu is wonderful for that because everybody can access it anytime they want. They can dig and they can, you know, once you get your filter set up so that it makes sense to them, they can really play with it. But it's not great if you're doing actual hardcore quantitative analysis. But the data gathering tool still works really well for that.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Other
questions?
questions?
The centrality and betweenness and eigenvector, you know, so it's a good first step.
I didn't hear that. I don't.
Oh, I just said, but it still allows you to do centrality, betweenness,
Yeah,
in degree, out degree, eigenvector.
yeah. It has the basic
Good first
stuff.
step.
Yeah, it just doesn't get super fancy. Other questions? Other comments?
Could I get Jim to send me an email or an email address? I'd like to follow up with him.
That's
Okay. I'll put it in the chat.
Yep, thanks.
Anyone
I'm
else?
retired, so I have time.
And I like for you to fill in. So I appreciate that. Okay.
Christine,
Yeah.
I have a doubt. All the personalization stuff you do in the Kumu maps, you make them through the upgrade setup, like with JavaScript option, whatever, or it's options that Kumu give you. Like, I don't know if.
So sumApp, we define all the questions and we define who's in there in Kumu, and we gather that in Kumu. Then the way Kumu outputs the data, there's no need for JavaScript. It just goes, I'm sorry, apologies. We gather the data in sumApp and it's structured directly for Kumu. And then so there's no need for JavaScript unless you want to get really complicated, which we don't generally have a need for. And then in Kumu, so this is the Kumu interface again. And I'm going to show you how in Kumu each view has an editor of code, and you can either work in the editor. This is the basic editor. So this is a visual interface where you can
share your screen real quick.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, guys. Apologies. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like I said, this is a view that has specific what's going to show, what's not going to show, what's going to be colored and sized in various ways. And this is the settings for this particular view. So we went into this is a basic settings. So this is a graphical user interface. So you just are looking at, if I want to change the color, don't do that. I could do that here. So I can edit how for instance, I could size here by now one of the metrics. So like if I had run their in degree, now we could make them bigger or smaller based on in degree or whatever the metric was that we wanted to decorate by. So this is in the basic editor. You don't need to know any kind of script. You just need to be able to sort of think logically about data and know what you want to do. You don't have to start like what we do, what Tim and I do is pretty complex and sophisticated. There's no reason to start there. You can start pretty simply.
Sorry, could you say what in degree is for people?
Thank you. In degree is just a network measure that is telling us, and I apologize, we got started on the metrics thing, and so I'm using metrical jargon, and I apologize for doing that. When you do a social network analysis, there's we can see all the questions, and Kumu can count in the relationships in various ways. And one of the things that it can count is who has arrows pointing into them, like how many arrows are pointing into this person. So the most well-known person in the network will have a much larger in degree than other people in the network. And so there's all kinds of different metrics. There's in degree, there's out degree, there's degree, which is both, there's size, there's centrality, there's some other mathematical things that really are just different ways of measuring how well connected and people are in the network, as well as where they fit within the overall structure of the network. For instance, there are people, go ahead.
I don't know, nice. I understood how Kumu works better. So thanks. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, was that, I'm answering your question. And then, yeah. So this is the only place where you might want to know any kind of code. It's not JavaScript. It's, I think it's JSON. Maybe that's JavaScript-y. I'm not sure. But you can get comfortable with, you can learn how to do this degree of coding, but you don't need to. And you don't need to restructure the data between sumApp and Kumu. So this is the what I'm showing you is the one place that it could get kind of complicated. So I hope that answered the question good enough. Okay, other questions? And thanks those of you who are asking for clarification on my jargon usage. I appreciate that you're calling that out and that you're self-correcting, and that because it's obnoxious for me to use it, but without explaining. So thanks for that. Other questions? Jim?
I just want to say I put on my beginner's mind hat, and you threw a lot of stuff at people. So anybody that's still hanging in here, I think you pat yourself on the back.
Yes. Yes, and I apologize. I kind of could sense I was doing it, but I was doing it. It's been a while since I've presented in an OnRamp, and I've forgotten what is beginner's mind and beginner's presentation. So I apologize for that. But thanks for calling that out, Jim, because it's a thing I could work on. Other questions?
The map you presented and the features are so rich that it was sort of hard not to.
Yes, that's what happens. It turns into a rabbit hole, and you just fall down it. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Samantha. I'm glad it's been helpful.
Mary's got her hand up.
How old is the map, and what are you thinking about doing in terms of the periphery and
yeah. So thanks, Mary. There were actually a couple of things I wanted to say that are sort of embedded in that question, which is so the map, we started it sort of in June, July. At that point, and like I said, this map is built from a survey that wasn't intended to be a social system map. And so I wanted to just briefly mention, so we sort of believe in starting where we can start. So we meet them where they're at. We do what we can so that we can have something to look at and something to improve upon. One of the things that, there's always a tension between getting the content of the map perfect and perfected before you make the map, like, having lots of gatherings and getting the language right and getting the right dimensions, which would be great if you can do it. But often you just can't pull that off because people don't really know what you're talking about. And it's so abstract that it's hard to actually focus on what is meant in different places. So I find it's really useful to just have something, and however imperfect. But when you have something that's really imperfect, what you have is something that's not very compelling and doesn't draw people in. And so then there isn't the interest to improve it and fix upon it. So thanks for letting us know you're jumping off, guys. And thanks for being with us. They already gone? Okay. Glenn, so let me finish. Sorry, I get easily distracted sometimes. So what we want to do about the periphery, I don't really know. Like there's ways that this network just is, I don't know how to say, like, there's a lot of mysteries to me going on in this network. We have a lot of intentions, and it feels like we're really still learning what a bunch of different things, and people are in real different places about what they're trying to learn and what the purpose of the network is. And so I don't know what we're going to do about that, but we have a map that points it out, and we have a map that we can start to say, well, what's missing? Why don't we understand? Why can't we figure out what's going on here? Or can we? Or what can we add? So my intention is to just do more sense making with what we have and trying to use it to amplify the tensions in the network or the lack of energy in the network.
Do the work streams, is the periphery a source of ideas for the work streams, do you think?
It should be. And one of the tensions I've seen in the network is that there are work streams that are very focused on outputs, producing some outputs in the short term, most of which are sort of academic. And then there are there's another sort of group of people in the in the network who are very interested in understanding principles and inclusion and belonging, and they're sort of, that's a much harder thing to figure out. And so they're sort of trying to figure out how to enter into that. And these two, in my opinion, aren't really overlapping, aren't really connected. So there are these work streams who are like plowing forward, producing outputs. And then there are these other work streams that are still trying to figure out how to make this work. And it just feels like there's a disconnect between the purposes and how the intentions overlap. And I'm trying to figure out how can we explore that in a way and bring them closer together. But yeah, that's what I know about that. I'm going to see, let's do this. Let's just see who's planning on sticking around so that we can talk about whatever more there is to talk about. And then let's sort of do a quick reflection and wrap up. So who's planning on sticking around after we hang up? Jim, Samantha, Kara. Okay. Pedro and Glenn, your video's not on, so I can't tell, but if you are planning on sticking around, if you could either put a hand on your thing or put a, okay, and you guys are having a conversation that I keep getting distracted by. Glenn's sticking around.
Glenn was asking about uptake. What kind of maps are compelling in terms of uptake in the network? And I pointed him to the directory view is often a slam dunk for communities that don't know each other that well. So there's the contact information and information about who the people are, what their interests are, what their intentions are, what they're about.
I see, Glenn. That's helpful to know. The other one is the offers and asks is often a big, people are excited by the offers and asks. But also to go back to, maybe it was Peter's question, I can't remember whose question it was in the beginning. There is a tension between like keeping it alive and keeping it updated. Really, there's a whole learning curve that we're all working on, all of us who do this mapping, of how to actually help the network itself get more value from this kind of a map and make more sense out of it, so that they can, so that they're inclined to keep it updated and that it stays alive and fresh, and but that they get value out of it themselves, because that's what it's like, the value of the network to the individuals, the network overall, as well as the value of the network map to the individuals, is what's really going to drive keeping it alive. And barring that, if you've got a funder who says you have to keep it up to date, but even then you're going to have to harass them all the time to keep it up to date. So I prefer the value approach to the stick up, or the carrot approach to the stick approach. But yeah. Okay. So let's do, yeah, it's definitely, Glenn, what we're doing is definitely a mashup or a cross, like putting together sort of a couple different contexts and intentions and ways of measuring things. And that's actually on purpose, but it does make it, so I think that there's a lot of richness to it, but it also makes it harder to understand in the beginning. And yeah, okay, I'm gonna stop now. I'm feeling stupid today. Feeling like I've been a little bit lame. So how about, we'll just do our, let's do, everybody put in to the chat, if you would, one thing that you found interesting or surprising or horrible into the chat.
I'll start. I appreciated the opportunity to see your application and how data is transformed into something actionable through a visual representation.
Great.
That helped me out a lot.
Good, thanks. And since we're at the top of the hour, I was actually hoping that we could just all put it in the chat so that we don't go over for those who need to go. Glenn, the map guide is part of the design of the map. Yeah, that's kind of a recent thing. I mean, a more recent learning that has been really helpful. I wish this thing would show you when people are typing like it does in Slack. So I can, I think Samantha's typing. Okay. Kumu can show who is having generative interaction. Oh, okay. So so that question is about, it's a question that's asked in the connections part of the survey. So when I pop open those tiles, that's a description. So I'm aware of them, you know, like I know of them or their work, I've met them, I have generative interactions with them. So that's defined by you, and they answer that question. They choose that themselves, or it's defined by whoever designs the survey. Okay, so just knowing that people have to jump off, let's do our what we usually do at the end, which is everybody who can unmutes, and we all give each other our greeting and appreciation for the rest of the day. And then those of you that are going to stick around for further conversation, just don't hang up, and everybody else can jump off and go on with their day. So let's all get unmuted. Mary, are you going to join us? Pedro, can you join us? Not a demand, just an invitation. Make sure that I'm waiting. Okay, and Glenn, I know that's what you're stuck with, but okay. So 3, 2, 1. Have a wonderful day.
So much,
Love you all. So happy to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.